not if, it's when. Another worldwide killer flu epidemic is well and truly overdue. Most likely it will be the bird flu we're hearing so much about now in Europe and right next door to us in Asia. It only has to start spreading from human to human and we're in real trouble. The fear is that when this threatened pandemic actually does happen, millions upon millions will die. So what are our chances? Richard Carlton's been on the scientific front line trying to find out just what we can expect.
One topic dominates the news tonight. The bird flu pandemic sweeping the world has arrived in Australia with devastating results. 32 Australians died today from the deadly virus, but by morning, health authorities fear that number will be in the hundreds. Thousands of people are being treated in hospital. Already, social order has broken down. There were riots in Melbourne at vaccination centres when stocks ran out. In Sydney, gangs are roaming some inner-city streets as crime goes unchecked because the virus has cut police numbers by a third. The federal government is taking unprecedented action to try to contain it.
Every single word of that is fiction. There's not one word of fact. But then it's not fantasy either. What we've done with that report is simply adapt to Australian conditions America's pandemic influenza strategic plan. The American version of the plan envisages 2 million dead, 8 million in hospital. It kind of gets your attention, doesn't it? Now, is this all wide of the mark? Is it scaremongering? Well, listen now to some of the best scientific brains in Australia, and you make up your own mind. We've all had a bout of the flu, but this time the stakes have skyrocketed. Nobody knows why this is happening now. This virus began stalking Asia 7 years ago. It first jumped from birds to humans in Hong Kong and elsewhere in China, and then radiated out. A good case study of how it spreads and kills is found in Thailand, where it broke out early last year. Here, 3 hours north of Bangkok by road, is where the current outbreak of bird flu first showed itself here in Thailand. It's thought that wild ducks migrating south from China for the warmer weather rested here and infected chooks at a tiny local chicken farm. 3 weeks later, the proprietor's nephew was dead. The H5N1 flu strain the ducks brought with them is deadly for domestic poultry. The day after the ducks arrived, the chickens began to suffer.
They were started to shake and their face turned purple, almost black. The eyes were swollen and turned to red. Then there were tears dropping out from the eyes. There were slivers came out from the mouth, very sticky one too. And then they started to die.
Bye.
At that stage, no one knew a virus was on the loose. The chickens were sick, but it seemed a waste not to eat them, so they gave some away. The farmer's nephew, Captain, got on his bike and with his parents' blessing, he shared them around the neighbourhood.
Yes, the boy carried a chicken from in front of the house to the backyard to an auntie to cook.
And that's when you think he contracted it. The 6-year-old was sick for 3 weeks and then he died. Soon after, a friend who'd helped deliver the chickens died as well. At this stage, the Thais went into near panic, despite assurances that well-cooked chicken is quite safe. Given that we know the virus can make the jump from chicken to human, the really bothersome question is whether it can make the next step from one human to another. And young Captain dying from it and his neighbour certainly doesn't rule that out. Therein lies the possibility of a pandemic. In humans, the H5N1 virus zeroes in on lung cells, and it has an astronomical kill rate. More than 100 have contracted it, and more than half have died. But the greatest danger, the worst possible development, is the bird flu swapping genes with a human flu virus, creating a new virus altogether that could then be transmitted from human to human. That mutation is what scores of scientists, including Nobel Prize winner Professor Peter Doherty, are watching for.
Now, if you get a human infected with a human virus and a bird virus simultaneously, those viruses can just repackage so that you get some bits from the human virus and some bits from the bird virus in a new virus that comes out. And that repackaged virus is the one we all fear.
So no one would be safe?
No one would be safe, that's right.
And that's how it was in the great pandemic at the end of World War I.
It was a massive outbreak. It killed somewhere in the range of 40 million plus human beings. In 1918-1919, it tended to affect the young and fit and healthy and kill very quickly. People would go home, they would feel ill, they'd be dead the next morning. Part of the thinking about that is that the body's own immune response was very aggressive, and of course that works better in the young, and it contributed to the damage and to the death. And people essentially drowned in their own body fluids.
The race is on to prevent another outbreak like 1918, and this is one of the front lines. The Australian Animal Health Laboratory in Geelong. Virus samples from some outbreaks in Asia are tested here. This sample came from Vietnam.
The virus will replicate in the cells in the fertile egg, and tomorrow morning when we come in, there'll be, hopefully if there's virus there, millions and millions of virus particles that we can use for further identification purposes.
It's vital work, and there is some cause for optimism. A vaccine for the known bird flu virus, H5N1, is close at hand, perhaps just months away.